get started. Good morning, Facebook. As usual, just a blanket or pillow or something like that that you can use at various moments in the practice. And then with your hands, rotate your thighs in. Good morning, Sherry. Draw the flesh of the buttocks slightly back and apart. If you have more external rotation available in your legs, you want to ease off on that instruction a little bit and make sure that your buttocks are still kind of wrapped underneath the sitting bones. And then place your hands lightly down at your sides. Press down to lengthen the sides of the torso and move the tops of the upper arms back. Take the head back. And then maintaining the length and the lift through the torso, place the hands lightly up or down on the legs. And take a breath or two to settle and to arrive in the space and time for practice that you've created for yourself. And just take a moment to recognize that that's not something to be taken for granted, that each time we come on our mats, we're choosing practice over the many other things that pull at our attention. And so that's already a commitment to practice. One of my first teachers talked about the hardest practice being the unroll your mat pose. And that once the mat's unrolled and you've made it there, then everything else is actually much easier. And there's a lot of truth in that teaching. I've reflected on it many times over the years. For our practice this morning, I have been, as I'm sure we all have been through these last couple of months, been really reflecting on the idea of constraint. And, we're at a time where constraint is more visible and predominant in our lives. And at the same time, there's always constraints that we come up against, either imposed constraints, like internally imposed constraints, or constraints created by the world around us. And I've been thinking about the effort that it takes, the energy that it takes to live in the context of those constraints. And it's an ongoing process of recognition and of maintaining a certain relationship with those constraints. Often, when we meet up against constraints of any sort, we have two options for our response. The polar ends of our response to constraint is often complete passivity. There's nothing I can do. I'm just not going to even bother trying. And then there is a more rebellious constraint where we push up with quite significant force against the constraint. And the yogic path is almost always the middle path, and it's asking us to find that balance between that passivity and the kind of like giving up response to a constraint, and also the middle way against the more full or pushing against the constraint, to come into a place where there's some effort being used, so we're not completely passive, but it's not the kind of force that just bangs us up against a wall. So there's some degree of surrender to the circumstance, and we want to find the balance between right effort and surrender. So some of our natures have a little bit more of the rebellious nature. They'll want to use force, and we want to pull back and examine surrender and releasing of unnecessary effort. And others of us naturally sit a little bit more on the passive end of the spectrum, and so we want to gather a little bit more of our energy and direct it the limitations that may be present. So today in the practice, the physical practice of yoga is a perfect practice, finding that balance between over effort and under effort, between the forceful pushing through and the kind of hanging back and having that sense of giving up or minimizing effort. So with that in mind, close your eyes and tune into the breath. As you bring your attention to the breath, recognize that the breath is a great teacher. It's really a teacher of many, many things. And the breath is a way that we can measure how balanced we are in terms of the effort that we're using and our connection to surrender that's not passive, that is even active. Surrender to the reality in which we find ourselves, the reality of the body, the reality of the practice this morning, the reality of the external world situation. So that as we practice, not right now, but as we practice, there will be some shift in the breath. There will be some impact on the breath at various moments. And we always want to find a sense of fluidity in the movement of the breath. So right now, where there's less demand on the breath, invite the breath to move as fluidly and freely as possible. And simply trace the inhale and the exhale, moving in and out of the body. Recognize that we have some degree of control over the breath, and also an inability to fully stop the breath. And so in that way, the breath also helps us find the balance between passivity and rebellion. With your next exhalation, join your hands together at your heart. Press the entire outer circle of the palms together and feel the space right in the center of the hands. Press the finger pads lightly against each other. And feel as you press the hands against each other, there's a corresponding subtle but present engagement in the muscles of the upper arms. Move the top of the upper arm bones back and the head back slightly. And lift the center of the heart up. From here, we'll initiate the space for practice with a single Om. So take a deep breath in. And gently bow your head to your heart. Pause there for a moment with the intention of listening in to the voice of the heart. And then release the hands down. Lift the head up and come and lie on your back. So have a blanket for behind the head as needed or as desired. And it's helpful just because we don't want the chin to lift overly and add additional tension to the muscles at the tops of the shoulders. So here, bend your knees, place your feet down on the mat. Tuck the tops of the shoulders a little bit underneath you, but feel the entire back of the rib cage settle down against the ground. So with the back of the rib cage on the floor, create a little curve of the lower back up away from the ground. And in many ways, a lot of the instructions in the yoga practice are opposing pairs. So if we overarch the back lift up off the ground. And if we push the back of the rib cage down too much, we'll flatten the curve in the lower back. So we want to find a balance point and bring the back of the rib cage to the ground. Keep the weight across the back of the pelvis and have a little bit of space between the lower back and the ground. Take a breath or two here. And then from here, we're going to move into the number 4 position, Suchirandrasana. So keeping the back of the pelvis on the mat without shifting the weight one way or the other. Cross your right ankle on your left thigh. So for some bodies, this pose will feel very available first thing in the morning, for those of you that are watching or joining live. And for others, it will not. So just tune into that. That's already a constraint that we want to work with, as opposed to push against or completely become passive with. So keeping the back of the pelvis on the ground lightly, press the right knee away from you. You could use your right hand on your right thigh to invite that action, but you can also just use the muscles of the legs. Release, let's do that a couple of times. So just press the right knee away from you and then release. Keep the weight even across the back of the pelvis. Move the knee away, release. 2 more times. So you want to feel the movement in the joint at the hip. And then, if that movement felt quite available for you and your body is willing, then lift the left knee up over the torso, bringing the left knee in line with the left shoulder. If not, just keep the left foot on the ground and press the right knee away from you. Hold the back of the left thigh if your left knee is over your torso, or reach around and catch the front of the shin. Either way, in all of the positions, bring the weight even against the back of the pelvis. Keep the back of the ribs on the ground and create a little space between the lower back and the floor. Breathe. So find a place where there's sensation. And then also where there's a certain amount of ease and fluidity in the breath. One more breath. So now you're going to release your hands if your left knee is in over the hold it there for a moment. If your left foot is on the ground, you're going to press the right knee away from you without using your hands and hold that for a couple of breaths. So you're actively engaging the body to hold the position. And then exhale, left foot on the ground, and everybody uncross the right. Keeping the weight even across the back of the pelvis, and without shifting the pelvis, cross your left ankle on your right thigh. And then a few times, move the left knee away from you and bring it back in. Keep the pelvis even. So you're not moving the pelvis to move the knee, you're working the movement into the hip joint. One more time. And then here again, if the body is available to it, you'll lift the right knee toward the right shoulder, catch the back of the right thigh. Wherever you are, maintain the little hollow behind the lower back and feel the weight of the body against the back of the pelvis and the back of the rib cage. Soften the throat and the jaw. Few more breaths. So one of the ways that we know we're working well in any position is that we can release the arms and maintain the position. So if the right knee, well, in either position, put your arms at your sides if you were using your arms in any way. Hold the shape. So if your right foot's on the ground, press the left knee away from you. And if you've lifted the right knee up, draw it in the same way that you had it, just without using your hands. And then put the right foot on the ground, everybody uncross the left. So you can keep the left leg bent, or you can extend it straight for the supine leg stretch, Supine Uttanasana. So same work in the pelvis, so back of the pelvis on the ground, little hollow in the lower back, back of the rib cage on the floor. Bend the right leg in, catch the back of the right thigh. If you have a belt and you would like to use the belt, you could put it around the ball of the foot. Gently flex your right foot, push your right thigh into your hands, and then reach the heel up toward the sky. So we'll do movement first, so bend the right leg and then stretch it straight. Keep pressing the thigh into the hands. And if your left leg is straight, press the back of your left thigh to the ground. 2 more breaths, 2 more cycles of movement. And then hold the leg as straight as possible. Press the thigh into the hands. And as you press the thigh into the hands, push the heel toward the ceiling, pressing the big toe side of the foot out away from you. And then if your leg is straight, you could draw it a little more in toward the torso. Find the place that works in the middle of what's available to you, so you're not underdoing or overdoing. And that's respecting the constraints of the body and also gently pressing against those limits. So now, release the hands, hold the leg in space with no hands, and then 4 or 5 times just gently, if the leg is bent, push it straighter, no hands, and if it is straight, then gently draw it toward the torso. So a couple more times. Either way, working the range of motion from an active stance. And then bend that leg, put the foot on the ground. If you extended the left leg on the first side, now extend the right. Bend the right leg, flex the foot, push the thigh away from you, stretch the leg straighter. First time we're using movement, so bend with the breath, so that you bend to ease off on the stretch in the back of the thigh, and then you press the leg straighter to encourage it. And for some people, having that not holding the pose gives us a little more capacity to find length in the muscles in the back of the thigh. Now hold the leg straight-ish. Push the thigh into the hands. Press out through the big toe side of the left foot. And part 1, make the leg as straight as possible. If the leg is straight, part 2 is to bring it in toward the torso without flattening the lower back. So now pressing the leg straight, if you've been as straight as possible and as in as possible, release your hands, hold for a few breaths. Good, and then exhale, bend that leg, pause. So now we're going to do a very similar thing out to the side. So again, you can have the left leg straight or the left leg bent. Draw the right leg in, catch the back of the thigh with the hand, stretch it straight. Go as straight as possible. And then put your left hand on your left hip or your left thigh. Turn the right leg out and holding the outside edge of the right leg with your hand, open the leg to the side. Keep the left hip on the ground. Maintain the curve in the lower back and bring as much of the back ribs, especially on the left side of the torso, down to the ground as possible. That might feel like you're twisting slightly to the left. And then lengthen out through the inside edge of the right leg. One more breath. Now you can use your right hand to help. Bring the right leg back up. Bend, put the foot on the ground. And then the other side. So draw the left leg in, stretch the left leg straight. You want to make it as straight as possible. And then right hand on your hip or your thigh. If your right leg is straight, press the back of that thigh down. Turn the leg out. Open it to the leg to the side, keeping the right hip. And again, the back of the right rib cage on the ground. Hold the left leg with the left hand, either on the thigh, the outside of the knee, the outside of the calf. Some of you might catch the big toe or the outside edge of the foot. Wherever you are, keep the right hip down and lengthen through the inside edge of the leg. Soften the jaw and the eyes. And then inhale, bring that leg back up. Exhale, bend. Now we'll do it without hands. So bend the right leg in, press the leg straight, turn the leg out, and then open it out to the side, keeping the left hip on the ground, no hands. Feel what you're using to hold the leg in place. So ideally there's engagement on the outside of the leg. Reach out through the inside edge of the leg. And then using the leg strength, inhale, bring it back up. Exhale, foot on the ground. Second side. Draw the left leg in. Push out through the heel and the big toe side of the foot to stretch the leg straight. Keep the weight even across the pelvis. Rotate the left leg to the side and then open it out. Breathe. We'll tend to tip to the left. So spin the low belly to the right. Use the muscles of the left leg to pull the leg in toward the pelvis and use that to help weight the right hip to the ground. Feel the effort and make sure you're not overdoing. One more breath. And then using the strength of the leg, inhale, bring it back up. Exhale, bend and release. Roll all the way over to your right side and then come around onto your hands and knees. So if a blanket is a good idea for your knees, then place the blanket across the mat. And then come onto the hands and knees with the hands shoulder distance apart and the knees hip distance apart. We'll cat-cow the spine here, rounding and arching the back. So tune into the breath. As you exhale, Tip the tailbone down and round your back up toward the sky. Let your head hang between your arms. As you inhale, lift the tailbone. Sway your spine toward the earth, look forward or up slightly. Exhale, round. Inhale, arch. Move like this with the breath. One more time. So once you've inhaled and looked forward or up slightly, then exhale into a neutral position. Inhale, bring your right foot forward into a low lunge, so your right knee is directly over your heel. Walk your left knee back enough that you feel sensation in the front of the left thigh. Push your right heel down. Shift your hips a little bit to the left so that the right sitting bone, is in line with your right heel. And point your front knee directly over your middle toes. So first thing is we're going to move into the stretchy sensations. So, and for some of us that's a place where we over effort, and for others that's a place where we hang back. So find that line where there's sensation on the front of the left thigh, maybe also other places. And the breath is still moving fluidly, and there's a sense that you could continue to stay in the pose. If you're fighting with yourself to be in the pose, that can be an indication that you're overdoing. One more breath. And then exhale, shift the hips back, change sides. So left foot forward, right knee on the ground. Slide the right knee back enough. Line your left sitting bone with your left heel. And push the heel down more than the ball of the foot. So you're really stamping the left heel down. Spin the outside of your right hip more forward. And then breathe. Giving into the sensations on the exhale often is a way that we can limit the overdoing and work with the constraints of the body. But if we tend to be a little more passive in this work, then we'll want to inhale and perhaps deepen the sensations. It's really that we're exploring our nature, our personality responses to things like constraint, the constraints of just having a body, and of these sensations in it. And gently antidoting our tendency. One more breath. And then come back to the first side. You can move the blanket now in that process to the first side off the mat, because now we'll come into a high lunge. So tuck the back toes under, lift the back knee up off the ground, and then same thing, front knee over front heel, right sitting bone lined up with right heel. Now lift the back thigh strongly away from the ground. Shift the pelvis down toward the earth as you lift the back thigh up. Make the back leg as straight and as steady as possible. Now, keeping the pelvis low and without shifting, so I actually shifted my weight to the right to lift my hands off the ground, and we don't want to do that. So keeping the hips shifting a little bit to the left, lift your hands just up off the ground. You can stretch them forward if you want, but really we're just feeling into the work in the legs and what's holding the position here. One more breath. And then fingertips on the ground. Step the back foot forward and change sides. So right foot back, left foot forward. Bring your left knee directly over your left heel. Shift your hips a bit to the right so that your left sitting bone is in line with the heel. Lift your right thigh strongly away from the ground and push out through that heel. Sink your hips down. And keeping the hips shifting a bit to the right and your front knee deeply bent, lift your hands just above the ground. So we really want to not change the shape of the pose so that whether our hands are down or up, the body's in the same position. That tells us that we're working well and we're not compensating with our arms or our hands. And then fingertips on the ground. Step the back foot forward, standing forward bend. Take the feet wide enough apart that you can fold over the legs with some degree of ease. And then just bend the knees enough that your fingertips touch the floor. With the knees a little bit bent, push it down into the inner edges of the feet and lift the arches so that you have an arch in your feet. Push the heels apart and stretch the legs straighter. Exhale, maybe bend them a little bit. So just like when we were lying down, if the legs are unhappy in the forward bend position, or there's a lot of sensation, you want to work with that by bending and straightening with the breath. So a few breaths like that. If your body is very comfortable in the forward bend, then as you stretch the legs straight, hold that, push the heels apart, hug that whole outer edge of the legs. So remember the muscles that were holding you both in the lunge and when you were on your back and took your leg to the side. Engage there, scoop up the low belly, stretch the crown of the head toward the ground. 2 more breaths. Bend the knees a bit, put the hands on the hips, lift the chin, inhale, come up. Exhale, turn to face the short edge of the mat. And stand with the feet apart or together. We'll do a couple of shoulder circles, arm things, and then we'll move into the standing poses. So, as we've been doing, take the arms just below shoulder height, palms down. Rotate the whole arms so that the palms turn up, and then stretch the arms up overhead. Turn the arms to the sides, and then sweep the arms down. Inhale to just below shoulder height. Exhale, rotate the whole arms so that the thumbs roll down toward the ground behind you. And then inhale, arms up overhead. Lift up really well. Turn the whole arms to the sides. Exhale, slowly sweep the arms down. Do one more like this. Inhale. Exhale, rotate. Inhale, arms up. Let the shoulder blades lift. Lift the whole rib cage up. And then exhale, arms all the way down. This time we're going to take that into a side bend. So inhale to shoulder height. Exhale, rotate the whole arms. Inhale, arms overhead. So you can stay here with the hands and the arms shoulder distance apart, or you could join the hands, interlace the fingers, and point the first finger up. If your feet are apart, you'll still want to be squeezing them in toward each other. Now shift the hips to the left and lean to the right. Press down into both heels and squeeze the legs together. Especially squeeze the outer calves and the outer hips in. Then, keeping the weight down in the heels, lengthen from your left hip to your left armpit, and then reach out more through your left fingertips. One more breath. And then inhale, come up. If you've interlaced your fingers, change the interlacing so that the other thumb is in front. Lift up really well. Shift the hips to the right. Exhale, lean to the left. Again, squeeze the legs together. And if your feet are together, you really want the whole inseam of the legs to be touching, like you've zipped up a zipper along the inside of the legs. Shifting the hips to the right, lengthen the right side of the torso, and really reach out into your right fingertips. Good. Inhale, come up, release the arms, exhale, sweep the arms down. We're gonna do one more shoulder thing. So you're gonna take your hands in front of you, interlace the palms, interlace the fingers and turn the palms out. Then stretch the arms straight. Suck the upper arm bones back into the shoulder sockets. Move your head back. And then bring the arms up as much as possible. So you explore whatever range of motion is available. This is a pose that has more constraint. So extend out through the arms, reach out through the base of your first fingers. If you can get the arms all the way up overhead as they come all the way overhead, rotate the pinky finger sides of the hands down toward the heels. Lift up. Exhale. Bring the arms down in front. Change the interlacing of the fingers so that the opposite thumb is on top. Turn the palms forward. Drop the shoulder blades here away from the ears and suck the upper arm bones back into the shoulder sockets. Then pressing out through the base of the first fingers and the thumbs. Inhale. Begin to take the arms overhead. So you want to play with, surrender to what is available within the constraint of the body. And then press out against that gently. So if your arms are not yet all the way overhead, you're stretching into that. If the arms are overhead, for some of us, we need to constrain in the lower back. So we'll take the arms overhead by arching the lower back. So drop the buttocks down, move the front ribs in, and then lift straight up. Exhale. Take the arms down in front, release the arms. And then warrior two, inhale, take a big step apart with the feet. Turn the left foot slightly in. Spin on the right heel, turn the entire right leg and foot out. Level your pelvis so that the top of the pelvis is parallel to the ground. And push from your left hip down into your left heel. Inhale the arms to the sides. Exhale, rotate the whole arm so that the palms face up. And then turn just the palms down. Now exhale, bend your front knee. As you bend your front knee, aim it straight over your middle toes. So you're holding yourself here in space with the same muscles that you used when you took the leg to the side, lying on the back, and in the straight leg lunge. So the back leg is like the leg out to the side, and the front leg is like the straight leg lunge. So feel the muscles of the legs holding you. Drop the right sitting bone down toward the right heel and press down into your left heel. Descend the shoulder blades. Now move the front ribs back away from your shirt, just like when you had your ribs on the ground, and turn your head to look past your right fingertips. Push into both heels. Inhale, stretch your right leg straight. Exhale, turn the feet, lower the arms. And then the second side. So turn the right foot in, rotate the left leg and foot out. Level the pelvis so the upper rim of the pelvis is parallel to the ground. And then stretch the arms to the sides. Rotate the whole arms so that the palms turn up, and then take just the hands down. Push into your right heel firmly. Exhale, bend your left knee, aiming it straight over your left, the middle of your left foot. Pause here. Feel the effort of the pose. And make sure that you're using the effort in the right places. So the outer edge of the back leg is holding you as you push into the outer edge of that foot. And then also the outer edge of the front foot and the buttocks are holding you. Keeping the shoulder blades down, move the front ribs back away from your shirt, maintaining a small curve in the lower back. And then turn the head and look out past the left fingertips. Breathe. Feel the strength in the legs holding you and using that strength. So your leg strength, inhale, come back up. Exhale, turn the feet. Inhale, step the feet together. Exhale. Trikonasana, triangle pose. Inhale, step the feet really wide apart. Turn the left foot in slightly, rotate the right leg and foot out. So press the back heel firmly down and out away from you. Plant the big toe side of your front foot, micro bend your front knee, and hug your right hip underneath you. Inhale, stretch the arms to the sides. Exhale, whole arms turn so that the palms are up, and then rotate just the hands down. And now lift up a little bit on the right side, and then as you come over, hug the right hip underneath you and bring your torso back so that the right shoulder is more in line with the outside of your right leg. You can put your left hand on your hip, or you can stretch it straight up in the air. Breathe. Push your back heel down. Plant the big toe side of your front foot and really firm your front hip, hugging it underneath you. Lengthen the size of the torso and move the front ribs back away from your shirt. So it's how you felt the back ribs on the floor when you were lying down. Reach out through your fingertips. Now using your leg strength, not your knee joint, your leg strength, lift your bottom hand off of the foot, leg, and then inhale and come up. Exhale, release your hands, turn your feet. And then the second side, so right foot slightly in, turn the left leg and foot out. Press down into your right heel, micro bend your right knee and rotate your knee so that it faces the middle toes. Inhale the arms to the sides, exhale, turn the arms, and then inhale just the palms down. Lift up a bit, and now as you come over, you're hugging your left hip underneath you and bringing your torso back so that you're more over the back side of the outer side of the left leg. Hold your left shin or ankle, right hand on your hip or right hand straight up and right arm straight up in the air. Breathe. Push into your back heel. Keep hugging your front hip underneath you, and as you press into the big toe side of the front foot, feel the engagement on the whole outer edge of the leg. Move your front ribs away from your shirt. Descend the shoulder blades, especially your left one, and take your head back. Now feel into the strength of the legs, and using that strength, so you're not using your hand, take the left hand off of your left leg, and then pushing into your heels, inhale, come up. Exhale, turn the feet, lower the arms, inhale, feet together. Warrior one, Utkatasana, powerful pose or chair pose. So squeeze the legs together, place the feet together, squeeze the legs together so that you've again zipped up the inner edge of the legs and they're squeezed right in tight to touch. Then inhale, take the arms overhead. If arms overhead isn't working for you, hands to shoulder height, palms down, or hands on the hips. Stretch up really well. Bring the weight back into the heels and move your front ribs away from your shirt. So today, we're not going to come forward when we sit down. So keeping the sitting bones over the heels and the front ribs away from your shirt. Bend the knees and bring your sitting bones straight down to your heels. And your torso upright. So you're really in a straight line from the outer hip to the armpit. You're not going to go, most of us aren't going to go down so far. That's fine. Push into the heels. Squeeze the outer hips together. Keeping the low belly lifted, move the front ribs away from your shirt and feel the breath move against the back of the rib cage. If your arms are overhead, lift the shoulder blades up. One more breath. And then pushing into your heels, inhale, come up. Exhale, lower your arms. Now warrior one. So inhale, step the feet really wide apart. Bring your hands to your hips. Spin your left foot in 60 degrees. Rotate your right leg and foot out and move your right foot a bit more over to the right. Draw the outside of your left hip more forward, turning your left leg more if that's available to you, and push into your left heel. Keeping good contact with the left heel on the ground, either hands on your hips, or if your shoulders allow, arms to your sides, rotate the arms, and inhale, take the arms overhead. Either hand shoulder distance apart or join the hands, interlace the fingers, and point the first finger up. Now, before we do anything else, plant your back heel, move your front ribs away from your shirt, and then without bringing the torso forward, bend your right knee, aiming it over your middle toes, and sit straight down in between the legs. So the torso stays exactly the same, even though the legs have moved. As you plant your back heel, press into your front heel, and even drag your front heel a little bit toward the midline of the mat without moving it. And feel the engagement and the outer right hip. Using the legs to support you, sit down in between your knees. Move the front ribs away from your shirt. Take your head back, lift your chin, look up. And now pushing into your heels. Inhale, stretch the front leg straight. Exhale, turn the feet, lower the arms, line up your toes. And then second side, Virabhadrasana 1. Turn your right foot in 60 degrees. Rotate the left leg and foot out, move it to the left. And adjust your right leg as needed so that you can swivel the outside of the right hip more forward. Really strongly push down into your right heel. Keeping your left heel planted. Scoop up the low belly, move your front ribs back away from your shirt. Hands at your hips, or rotate the arms to the sides and inhale, sweep the arms overhead. Change the interlacing of the fingers. Point the first finger up if you did that on the first side. Now, planting your heels, move your front ribs away from your shirt, and then bend your front knee deeply and sit straight down without bringing the torso forward. Plant the back heel. Press your front heel down and drag it in toward the midline of your mat to firm the outside of the hip and to keep the knee pointing forward. Now move the front ribs away from your shirt. There's even a sense of kind of space between the front of the pelvis and your left thigh. Move the head back. Stretch up through the arms. Take the head back a little bit. Lift the chin, look up. One more breath. Push into your heels. Inhale, stretch the front leg straight. Exhale, turn the feet, lower the arms. Inhale, step the feet together. Face the short edge of the mat. Separate the feet well, standing forward bend. Inhale. Exhale, bend the knees as needed. Hinge from the tops of the thighs. Fold over. Touch your fingertips to the ground. Relax your head. After the first breath or two, and those first couple of breaths are really an assessment of that balance between over effort and passivity. And we want to find the place where we're in right effort, active surrender, meaning we're working within the constraints and gently pressing against them. Pushing the heels apart. Stretch the legs straighter. Hug up the low belly if your legs are straight. And squeeze the outer edges of the legs toward the center.
So now bend the knees, place the fingertips beside the feet. Inhale, step the right foot back, but not as far back as we would normally do it in a lunge. And keep your back heel up off the ground. Bend your front knee a little bit and hug your front hip in. So now you have some options. We're going to do a balance exercise here. So you can hold your right ankle with your right hand, or you could hold it with both hands. So your front knee is a little bit bent, and then with your back leg straight, your back heel lifted, you're going to bend your front knee toward your middle toes and stretch it straighter. So you're going to bend and stretch it straight. So you want the right sitting bone to stay in line with the right heel, and the front knee to track straight over the middle toes. It doesn't have to be a big bend and straighten. You're really feeling the added component of the balance makes us work the muscles of the legs more. One more breath. And then release the hand or hands. Put the fingertips on the ground, change sides. So step the left foot forward. Take the right foot back, again, not as far as a straight leg lunge. Lift the back heel. So your feet are hip bone distance apart. And bring your left sitting bone in line with your left heel. Hold the left foot with the left hand, option 1, or both hands, option 2. Breathe. Press into the big toe side of your front foot. And then stretch the leg straighter, keeping the sitting bone in line with the heel, and bend. Track the knee over the middle toes. Feel the work in the legs. Soften the jaw and the eyes. One more time. Release the hands. Step the back foot forward. Bend the knees a little bit. Put your hands on your hips. Lift your chin. Inhale, come up. So now we're going to do a standing balancing pose, and then we'll finish the standing poses there. So we're going to lift the leg up, stretch it straight, and then take it to the side, not at the same time. So Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana. So for some people, balance is better if we start with our feet hip bone distance apart. For other people, it's better if the feet start together. Either way, you want to squeeze the legs in. Press down into your left leg and firm your left leg just like you had it. Then bend the right knee, lift the right knee up, catch the back of the right thigh like we did lying down. Then draw the shoulder blades away from the ears. Hug the outside of the left hip in, push into the left big toe. Flex your right foot, stretch your right leg out straighter. Press the thigh into the hand, press out through the heel, breathe. Now, release your hands, put your hands on your hips, hold your leg in place. Just 2 more breaths. And then bend that leg, put that foot on the ground. So position your right foot, toes point straight forward. Plant the big toe side of your right foot, hug your right hip in. Focus your gaze, breathe. Lift the left knee up, catch the back of the left thigh. Keep the right leg strong and steady. Descend your shoulder blades, and now flexing your left foot, push out through the heel, the big toe side of the foot. You're not necessarily thinking about lifting it up, although some of you may. You want to really press the thigh down into the hands and extend out through the big toe side of the foot. Now, from there, release the hands, hands to the hips. Hold just 2 breaths. and bend and release. Now we're going to take the leg to the side. We're not going to do it with no hands though. So just so you know. So as you press down into your left foot, firm the outside of your left hip. Put your left hand on your hip, lift your right knee up. Hold the back of the leg with the back of the thigh with your right hand. So again, keeping the left leg firm. Now firm the outside of your right hip, open your right knee to the side. You could stay here. Or you could flex the foot and stretch the leg straighter. Wherever you want, keep the outer left hip firm. Press into the big toe side of your left foot. Lift your chest and descend the shoulder blades. One more breath. If your leg is straight, bend your leg, bring it back to center, and then release. And put that foot down. Other side. So standing on your right leg, press into the big toe side of your right foot, firm the outside of your right hip. Bend your left knee, lift up so your right hand's on your thigh. Hold the back of your back of your left thigh with your hands. And then keeping the right leg strong and steady, firm your right hip. Open the leg. So it's very similar to the number 4 position where you were holding yourself in space and pressing the knee away from you. So you can stay here, or you could stretch the leg out straight. Wherever you are, descend the shoulder blades, lift the heart, relax the jaw and the eyes. So you're really using your legs and your abdomen and your buttocks to hold yourself in space. The lower half of the body is working quite hard, the upper half not so much. And then knee back to center, release the hands, put the foot down. Standing forward bend. What a relief. So separate the feet hip distance apart or a little wider. Inhale here, exhale, fold forward. As you bend the knees to touch the fingertips to the ground, this is the last standing position, the last standing forward bend of the practice. So here's a moment where you want to invite the hamstrings to release a little bit more, the legs to straighten, working again within the constraints of your body on this day. So our body constraints change day to day. So bending the knees as needed. And that's as needed to get the fingertips to the ground. It's also as needed to, save the lower back a little bit. Fold the torso over the legs. Maybe stay here. Maybe push the heels apart and stretch the legs straighter. Maybe pulse with that, bending and straightening the legs. Or if the legs are straight, zip up the outer seam of the legs here and squeeze the outer edges of the legs in. Peel the low belly off the tops of the thighs and fold the torso down over the legs. So from here, downward facing dog. If you're not weight bearing on your hands, or you could just do child's pose because you feel like doing child's pose. So bending the knees, place the hands flat, step one foot in and the other all the way back. So it's a big step back. Look at your hands. Turn the hands slightly out to the sides and evenly spread out the fingers. Slightly bend the elbows. Press the weight onto the base of the index fingers, the heels of the thumbs, and spin the triceps toward the sides of the face. Now, bend the knees a little bit. Tip the top of the sacrum in so you have a little curve in your lower back, but move the front ribs away from your shirt. Pull your hips back away from your hands. And then the last thing is to stretch the legs straighter. As you stretch the legs straighter, pull the outer hips back and in. Descend the center of the heels. Regardless of whether the heels touch the ground, press them toward the ground. Inhale. Exhale, come onto the hands and knees. So here's a moment where you might want the blanket back across the knees. And we're going to do some work building strength in the arms and the upper back. So here, lift the low belly in. So just slightly turn the tailbone toward the backs of the knees so that you're lengthening the lower back curve instead of exaggerating it. And then bring the shoulder blades away from the ears. And just a couple of times we're going to drop the center of the heart down and puff it back up toward the ceiling. So as you exhale, keeping the arms straight, just drop the center of the heart toward the thumbs. And then push the back of the heart up toward the sky. Drop down. Push back up. Drop the center of the heart toward the thumbs. And then puff the back of the heart up. You want to minimize the movement in the lower back. And keep the movement right between the shoulder blades. Good, one more breath. So once you've puffed back up, then pause in a neutral position. So now we're going to bend the elbows in a couple of different orientations and press back up. So you're not going to go all the way down to the ground, and you can lower, you only want to lower as far as you can press back up from. So you're imposing constraints, and better to start doing less and then add more than the other way around. So I like to tuck my toes under here. So now you're going to turn the arms so that the elbows are going to bend to the side. With the elbows bending to the side, bring the center of your chest over your thumbs. Drop the shoulder blades. Now bending the elbows to the side, keeping the low belly up. Lower the heart toward the thumbs. Push back up. Elbows to the side. Lower down. Push back up. So 3 more. Lower down. Keep the low belly engaged. Push back up. Lower the heart toward the thumbs. Push back up. Make sure you're not lifting your shoulder blades. Heart down. Push back up. Let's do 1 more. Heart down. Push back up. Pause. In the pause, just turn your hands one at a time so that the palms are up. And you're resting on the backs of your wrists, the backs of your hands. Bending the elbows a little bit. Good, and then one at a time, release the hands. Reposition the hands so the hands slightly turn out, evenly spread out the fingers, descend the shoulder blades. Now we're going to do a very similar thing, except we're changing the bend of the elbows. This time the bend is going to be back toward the baby toes. So the insides of the elbows face a little bit more forward. Scoop up the low belly. Draw the shoulder blades away from your ears. Move your heart a little bit forward of your thumbs. And then bending the elbows back, lower the chest toward the ground. Push back up. Elbows straight back, lower the chest down, push back up. 3 more. Last one. Let's do 1 more for good luck. And then push back up. Pause again. In the pause, turn the hands so that the palms face up and the fingers point back toward the feet, toward the knees. And descend the shoulder blades. Stretch the arms straighter. If you want to make this, this is not intense enough, you want to make it more, you can shift your hips toward your heels. that increases the sensation here. But for most of us, especially if we do quite a bit of computer work, this is a good enough experience. And then slowly release. One last downward facing dog. So place the hands shoulder distance apart, spread out the fingers, tuck the toes under, lift the hips up, press back. So now bend the elbows a little bit to the sides. So the elbows point out, just like the first exercise that we did. And then spin the points of the elbows toward the baby toes, just like the second exercise. Lift the undersides of the arms away from the ground. And then pull the hips strongly back. Move the inner edges of the legs back toward the wall behind you. Squeeze the outer hips together. Sink the spine between the shoulder blades in. Let your head hang. One more breath. And then bend the knees to the ground. You can move the blanket to the side and come onto your stomach. As you come onto your stomach, my shirt, there we go. Your hands back by your thighs. Stretch your legs straight back behind you. Scoop up the low belly, firm the muscles of the buttocks. Shalabhasana, locust pose. We're going to lift the head, chest, the arms, and the legs. If lifting the legs isn't a good idea for your lower back, don't do that. So stretching the toes back behind you. When you're ready, inhale, lift the head, chest, the arms, and the legs. Breathe. Thighs and reach back through your feet. Curl the shoulders back away from the ground and reach the center of the heart forward. Stretch your fingertips toward your feet. And then exhale and come down. Take your hands and interlace them behind your head. So you bring your forehead to the ground and interlace your hands behind the thick part of the skull, so not the neck. Drop the shoulder blades. Scoop up the low belly, firm the muscles of the buttocks. This arm position is a pose called Makrasana, and it's usually translated as yucky pose because it requires a lot of upper back strength. So you want to work again against the constraints. This is, for most of us, not an easy lift. So lift the elbows just off the ground and slightly take your elbows forward toward the direction of the crown of the head. Keep the low belly lifted, firm the muscles of the buttocks. Now we're going to lift the head and the chest. When you're ready, lift the head and the chest up. If your legs lift, fine. Lift the head and chest. Descend the shoulder blades. Reach the points of the elbows away from you. Curl the chest away from the ground. Inhale. Exhale, come down. Change the interlacing of the fingers. So, in the face of difficulty, we still want to find that place where we're working with effort, but also with a sense of recognition of what's available to us at any moment. So that's where surrender comes into play. It's not passive. We're not giving up. And we're not overdoing to the place that there's additional tension imprinted in the body from the practice. So with that in mind, scoop up the low belly, firm the muscles of the buttocks, lift the elbows slightly up, reach them forward. Then inhale, lift the head, chest, and the elbows. Press your head into your hands versus your hands into your head. Lift the elbows forward and up. 2 more breaths. Exhale. and come down. Release the hands. Place the hands under the shoulders. Come onto the hands and knees, turn over, and sit with the legs out in front of you. That's a pose I frequently forget in my own practice. Forget. So, with your hands behind you, Purvottanasana, you're not necessarily lifting up. This is reverse table. So take the hands significantly wide, like my fingers are off my mat. Turn the hands so that the fingers point straight out to the sides, or rotate the arms so that the fingers point a little more toward the feet. Bend the elbows and have the elbows, the points of the elbows straight back away from you so that they're not squeezed in or also released out. And then from there, lift the chest up. Bend the knees, place the feet on the ground. So you might just stay here, and if that's enough for your shoulder joint, that's the perfect place to be. So that's finding right effort. If the fronts of the shoulders feel fine here, then push into the hands and the feet, and inhale, lift the hips up. As you lift the hips up, push into the heels. Keep a little bend in the elbows. Feel the upper back working. Maybe lift the chin, maybe release the head back. One more breath. Exhale, slowly bring the hips down and come right onto your back. Bridge pose, Seti Bandha. Tuck the tops of the shoulders under. With the tops of the shoulders under, place your arms so that the elbows are bent and the fingers are pointing straight up. And the elbows are a little bit away from the sides of the body. They're not tucked in close. So when my elbows are a little away from the body, I have more capacity to press the tops of the shoulders, the tops of the upper arm bones down into the ground. Have the face parallel to the sky so that there's a curve in the back of the neck and a curve in the lower back. And now pushing into the heels, lift the hips up. Scoop the shoulders underneath. Push the heels down. Press the top of the upper arm bones down. Keep the knees pointing straight forward over the middle toes so that the outer hips draw in. And then lift the hips up. As you lift the hips up, push the heels down to curl the center of the heart toward the chin without dropping the chin toward the chest. One more breath. Exhale and come all the way down. So second one, either grab the edges of the mat. Some of you might take your hands to either the backs of the heels or around to the front of the ankles. So wherever you are, holding on to something, push the heels down. Create a curve in the lower back, a curve in the back of the neck. Press the top of the upper arm bones down. Inhale, lift the hips up. As you lift the hips up, keep the knees pointing straight forward. Scoop the shoulders underneath you like you did the first time. And then inhale, hips all the way up. As you lift the hips up, push the heels down and use the work in the legs to bring your heart toward your chin. Press the upper arm bones slightly out, away from you, so that you're not overly straightening the arms. Good, inhale. Exhale, slowly come down. And then you can take the blanket for behind your head again here. So supine Gomukhasana. So you're going to cross the right ankle all the way over the left. So your knees are stacked. I said ankle, I think. Cross your right leg all the way over your left so that your knees are stacked. And then lift the knees up. Here, the lower back will probably touch the ground, but you want to still feel the weight across the back of the pelvis, and you haven't rolled up so much that the pelvis has lifted and the weight of the body is being dumped in the lower back. Hold the knees, option 1. Option 2 is to hold the shins or the outer ankles, or option 3, the outer edges of the feet. If holding the knees seems far away, at the moment you could grab a belt or a towel or something that you could wrap around the knees and hold on to. Breathe. So here's where effort kind of works in the reverse. Most of us have to release effort here. And in that release, the body kind of opens up into the sensations. However, there's some people who are quite open and even lax in the muscles around the hips, in which case you want to hold some tension there. So you want to squeeze the legs together and feel like your legs are drawing themselves in toward the torso, as opposed to the arms. For people who have more sensation here, using the arms a little bit more can give the legs some sense of safety, in which the muscles can release more. Last breath or two. And then release the hands, put the foot down, uncross, and then change sides. So cross the left leg all the way over the right, lift up, hold as you did on the first side, or as best you can, because there's quite a difference for some people here side to side. Feel the weight even across the back of the pelvis, and again, make sure that the weight isn't dumping into the lower back. Use your arms, if you have a lot of sensation, to kind of hold the legs and to give the legs the message that the muscles can release. If you feel very little sensation here, you want to squeeze the legs together and do less work with the arms to no work with the arms, and hold yourself in place with very little arm support. One more breath. And then release the hands, the feet on the ground, uncross. Roll all the way over to the right side, a simple seated cross-legged forward bend before Shavasana. So you want to sit with the legs crossed. If it's not appropriate for you to sit with the legs crossed, you could repeat what we just did. You could also repeat the number 4 position, but I actually might suggest that you repeat what we just did instead. So if you're seated, with your hands, turn your thighs in. If you're on your back and you're doing the Gomukhasana legs, your right knee is crossed over your left. Here you want your knees, if you're seated, you want your knees quite tight together as opposed to wider apart. So walking the knees in, it can be helpful to roll the outside calf away from you and then descend the buttocks. Tip the pelvis forward, place the hands in front, and come forward some amount. So it's just like what we played with lying down on the back a moment ago. So if your body tends to be quite able to fold forward here,
You want to hold the legs together, squeezing the legs in and feeling some engagement in the muscles of the buttocks so that there's a sense that the muscles here support the femur bones in their relationship to the hip sockets. If you have less forward bending availability right now, you just want to kind of like release as much as possible. So you want to use the breath to iron out sensation. And if you have more sensation, being present to the exhalation will move toward less. And if you have less sensation, being present, inhale, and engaging the muscles there might be useful. Couple more breaths. Walk the hands back in, come on up, change the cross of the legs. If you're lying down, you'll put the left leg over the right. Turn your thighs in with your hands if you're seated. Knees together again. You might want to roll that outside calf away from you to help squeeze the legs together and to get a significant pressure in the cross there. And then fingertips in front. Tip forward. As you tip forward, descend the flesh of the buttocks. Keep the low belly lightly drawn back and lengthen the torso over the legs. Work within the constraints of the body and explore that balance between rebellion, pushing against the constraints in the body, and passivity, kind of moving away from the constraints and not working with, both situations are not working with the inherent constraint that comes with embodiment. And recognize that it takes a certain amount of effort to maintain that equilibrium, that balance between overdoing and not doing. Walk the hands back in, inhale, come up if you're lying down, release the legs, uncross. Shavasana, final relaxation pose. So lie down, extend the legs out, and if you need, take something for behind the knees. And perhaps the blanket again folded behind the head. Once you've placed yourself, take the feet as wide as about the outside of the hips. If you have more of that external rotation capacity, feet a little narrower might be useful. And if you have less of that, take the feet a little wider. Take the arms to the sides, rotate the arms so that the palms face up, or lightly bend the elbows and place the palms down on the torso. Close your eyes. This is the most important pose of the practice for many reasons, but one today is that it is the space for integration, for the body to take in the experience of the practice, to retain what's useful, and to release what's not. So release the body completely and fully down into the gravitational pull of the earth. As the body releases into the earth, Soften the belly, tops of the shoulders, throat, jaw and eyes. As the body settles, see if there's a sense that the constraints, the edges of the body actually dissolve a little bit, and the body spreads out beyond what was previously considered available. On the physical level, the effort applied here is in not moving and in consciously and deliberately relaxing more. And then more effort is often needed in the work with the mind, so that the mind stays alert, not drifting off into a trance-like semi-sleep state that is a form of passivity. And we're not over efforting, so thinking and getting caught up in the thoughts that come and go. But finding that place where we're alert, attentive, non-reactive, present. Rest there. Softly deepen your breath. And with the next deeper breath in, bend the elbows, place the palms down on the torso if they're not already there, and just feel into the breath for a moment. And then as you're ready, one at a time, bend your knees, place your feet on the ground. Supporting the head with the right arm as needed. Roll completely to your right side. And then pushing down with your right hand to bring yourself up and come to sit. Sit well. Close your eyes. Join your hands together at your heart. May our practice continue to illuminate the place in between passivity and rebellion. Work within the present constraints in a way that is in line with right effort. Close the practice with one Om. Take a breath in. Thank you. Namaste.